Earlier, we talked about workspaces in Premiere, and workspaces can be nothing more than a starting point for how your environment is configured. So there's some predefined workspaces that Adobe has set up based upon how you're going to be working with Premiere. And again, we have the workspace switcher up here towards the top that we can use. We can also come up to the window menu, and from there we can choose workspaces and select a particular workspace. So let's say, for example, we were going to work with a lot of effects. We could choose that workspace, and you'll notice that the interface reconfigures and displays panels that you're most likely to use when working with a lot of effects. Likewise, you can also use this workspace switcher. I'm going to come back to editing. It's the workspace that we're going to be using throughout this course. If for some reason you don't like this workspace switcher, you can hide it. Just right-click over here in an empty space, or control-click if you're on a Mac, and you can choose Minimize, which will make it available a little bit later on. If you hover over that section, you'll notice a little arrow pointing down. You can click it to re-expand it. But if you want to get rid of it altogether, you can choose Close Panel, and you can even undock it and move it somewhere else. And that's what I really want to talk about. This is a starting point, and based upon your situation, you may want to reconfigure this. Perhaps there's one panel that you find that you use more often than not, and it's not available by default. Well, you can keep it open. Maybe you have a high-resolution monitor, and because you have a high-resolution monitor, you can fit more panels within the workspace. Or maybe you have more than one monitor, and you want to place some panels on that secondary monitor. All of this is possible. You can completely reconfigure the interface, and what's great about it is you can even save it as your own workspace. Let's say, for example, we wanted to move a panel. We're going to move the Tools panel. It's a little sensitive in terms of the way that it works. What you have to do is click and drag in one motion. So I'm going to click and drag up here towards the top. Don't click once, because then you select it. You need to kind of select it and drag it all in one movement. So click and drag, and as you do that, you'll notice you get highlights within the interface, which is an indicator in terms of where you're going to place it. Now, if you have the center highlighted, it's essentially going to become a tab within this panel set. It's the same as placing it up here towards the top. This and this do the same thing. If you select this option, it will appear above this current panel. If you do this, it will appear below it. This will make it appear to the left of it, and this will make it appear to the right of it. You can also come way up here. You see a different type of highlight, and you can dock it towards the top. And when you dock it towards the top, obviously it's taking up way too much space, so we can change the size of this panel. Notice I have a two-way arrow. If I click and drag up, I'm shrinking down the Tools panel, making more room for other panels within the interface. Now, if you reconfigure the editing workspace and you don't like it, you can always get back to the original editing workspace by coming up to the window menu, choosing Workspaces. Then you would select Reset to Saved Layout. When you do that, you'll notice it's reconfigured to the default layout. So let's say, for example, you make some modifications to the interface. I'll grab the media browser here, and then I'll click and drag it just below the source monitor. So notice I have this area highlighted down here towards the bottom. When I let go of the mouse, it appears in between the source monitor and the project's panel set. You can do whatever you want in terms of laying this out in a way that best suits your working habits. Once you're done, you can come up to the window menu, and from there, you can choose Workspaces, and then you can select Save as New Workspace. When you do that, you have to name it, and I'll go ahead and call this Mats for lack of coming up with something more creative, and then I'll click OK. Once I click OK, you'll notice that Mats becomes available up here in the Workspace switcher. Now, there's more workspaces than what we're seeing here in the Workspace switcher, and we can access those additional workspaces by clicking this little chevron sign over here on the right-hand side. So now I can recall this workspace at any point in time. If I come back to the editing workspace, if I want to get back to Mats, I can do that by clicking on Mats. Now, you'll notice you're not seeing a difference between the two, and that's because we changed the editing workspace when we were working with it. So again, we can come up to the window menu and choose Workspaces, and then select Reset to Save Layout. Then we'll see the differences between the editing workspace and Matt's workspace. Now you can manage these workspaces, by the way. Again, I'm going to come back to the editing workspace. It's the workspace that we're going to be using throughout the course. But if we come up to the window menu, from the window menu, we can choose workspaces. Then we can select edit workspaces. And here you have the ability to modify your workspaces in terms of what will appear within the switcher, the bar up here towards the top, and what the overflow menu will contain. But you can also select a workspace here, and with it selected, you can click this delete button to remove it. And you'll notice that I've just deleted the workspace that I created and called Matt's. So now it's gone. Come down here and click OK, and there you have it. That's how you can work with workspaces inside of Premiere.